Hello and welcome back with me, Admiral, joining me back on Star Trek Fleet Command on bridge of USS as always. Don't forget to leave your comments in the description down below to the name of the next ship. I will be looking, so please leave them down below and we'll pick the next ship name next week on a vote. So leave that down below, please. Today's episode we're going to be talking a little bit about armadas, the cruise, sort of crew layouts that you can utilize. We're going to talk about early game and we're going to talk about sort of mid game as well. Late game, not so much because I probably don't have them types of officers, if I'm honest. So we'll probably talk about early to mid sort of game, which is pretty much the position that I'm in at the moment, and officers that you can utilize throughout them sort of spectrums. So let's dive straight in. So if you're going to go for early game sort of officers, let's just go to a ship that I can actually go to. If you're going to go to early sort of officers, my advice would be to go for maybe something like this, something like a burning crew, maybe something like a morale crew, or maybe even a hull breach crew, which if you haven't seen them already, you can check out my video and I show you all the different crews, the early crews anyway, for burning, for breach, hull breach, and for obviously morale. So go check out them videos as well. I'll try and leave it in the pop out somewhere up there, that way. So wherever it pops up, I'll try and leave them there for you. But I probably won't be able to leave all of them. But yeah, so burning crew is a very good one due to the obviously damage over time that it causes. And that's probably the most useful one for an armada, for example. So something like this for early game players, something like this sort of setup is pretty viable. Or maybe even Kumak in there rather than... so if we go to obviously his groups, you want to get maybe Kumak in there instead, potentially, rather than obviously Vela. Because Vela's is a secondary ability is not, it's not overly great, but yeah, so maybe something like that. When you sort of going into your structure of your game, you need to, when you're doing your armadas, certainly when it's an armada that may be too powerful for you obviously to handle on your own, which is probably going to be the case, you need to sort of talk to your alliance and make sure that everyone is bringing a specific set ship to the armada itself. Certainly if you go for something that's crazy strong, you want to try and get someone to bring obviously hull breach, someone to bring burning, and then all the other players, to be honest, within that obviously armada, whether that be obviously one more, two, three more, depending on obviously how many people you can fit in your armada, then you want to try and get them to just bring as much health on their ships as possible, because they'll get the bonuses from hull breaches and the burning from the other two players that hopefully will trigger them during the armada anyway. So they just need to last as long as possible or hit as hard as possible, whichever way round they want to do it. That would be my best suggestion. So you need to talk to your alliance, you need to come up with a solution of who's going to bring what type of ship, what type of ships do better. Obviously if you're going to bring hull breach, try and bring something that's obviously kinetic, so Saladins, your D4s maybe, or anything sort of on that sort of lines. They're all good ships to use. But yeah, speak to your alliance, sort something out. Two people need to bring at least a burning and a hull breach, and then everyone else basically bring as much health as you can and as much damage output as they can as well, and that should definitely help you out. The other crews that we're going to talk about, that's all early game stuff, and what I've just mentioned then, that's not just early game, that is throughout the entirety of armadas. But what we're going to mention now is mid sort of game, and that is these three officers here. Because new players might not actually have them. Let's go into the officers so we can sort of read what they are. We'll sort them into groups and we'll head down to where they are. So we're looking at the first two, which is going to be 5 of 11. 5 of 11 is an incredibly powerful officer, certainly as a captain, due to this obviously officer captain ability. And bear in mind, I only have her at level 5, so you can sort of see how good she actually is. And so 5 of 11 increases the shield, deflection, armor, and dodge by 600% of the total health of all the officers on the ship, which is incredibly powerful. Certainly, if you have a decent amount of health as part of your lower decks, and I would advise, if you are doing obviously armadas, having as much health as possible is definitely a good thing. So yeah, you get that, and then you get the added bonus of you get more increased resource drop rate from hostiles by 20% as well. I don't know if this is relevant for armadas, but it's certainly relevant for hostiles. And then moving on to the other officer that we're going to use in this lineup, which is an incredibly powerful officer for armadas in particular. Again, only have him at level 5 as well, and that is 6 of 11. Because of his secondary, or kind of his first as well, but his secondary, when attacking an armada target, every time the ship hits the opponent with a weapon attack, 6 of 11 increases the accuracy, armor piercing, and shield piercing of the ship by 5% of the total attack of all the officers on the ship. Weapons with multiple shots will only obviously trigger this ability once per attack. But yeah, that triggers, and again, once that starts to rack up, that can be very, very potent as well, and it's something that you need to do to get rid of basically the shields on the armada and get through everything that you need to get through to be successful. And then the last officer we're going to talk about in this sort of lineup, which I believe everyone should definitely have this officer, or certainly strive to get him. Again, doesn't need to be ridiculously powerful, but it certainly needs to be of a decent level to make it obviously work better, I would say. And that is, wherever he is, where is Khan? Am I blind? There he is. So Khan, I have him at level 15, which is level 3. And again, you want to use him for his secondary ability, or his deck ability. And that's every time the ship is hit by a ship or defense platform weapon attack, and this also counts for armadas. So Khan increases the critical hit chance by 3% for level 3. Obviously it starts at, I believe, 1, 2 and then 3%. Every level it goes up. So, but it doesn't matter whether it's level 1 or level 3, getting that extra bonus, i.e. 3% or 1%, and because it is cumulative, it does rack up over time, all the different rounds, for example, and that will definitely help you out massively, because the more crit hits you can obviously get, the more damage output you're going to potentially do to the armada, and the quicker you can take the armada down. And this is probably, in my opinion, one of the best setups for doing armadas, hands down. This is the standard way you should do it if you have these officers, and obviously besides the two that need to bring hull breach or obviously burning. And then I would advise using the same two, so same, obviously you still want to use 5 of 11, you still want to use Khan. The only difference is you would replace 6 of 11 with a Giorgio, or GG, whichever one you want to call her, Giorgio, because of her burning ability, which is this one. So at the beginning of each round, Giorgio has a 50% chance of burning the opponent's ship for 2 rounds. Ship, same thing as armadas. So that's really, really good. Alternatively, if you want hull breach, you want to bring Lorca. And again, at the beginning of each round, Lorca has a 50% chance of dealing hull breach to the opponent's ship for 2 rounds as well. So exactly the same ability, just one's hull breach and one is burning. So they're the officers that you definitely mid-game, if you have them available to you, they're the officers you want to use for burning and hull breach for armadas. Make sure at least one person brings one of each, and then everyone else, I would definitely suggest going for the strategy that I just laid out, which is to use 5, 6 of 11 and probably Khan. If you don't have them available to you, then substitute them in for potentially a morale setup. Certainly if you've got a Enterprise, go for some form of morale setup to get obviously bolstered shields, and that will obviously do you well also. But other than that, hopefully this video has been useful for you. If you have any suggestions in the future for video content, please let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, be safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.